you're not going to be able to generate a good shot. They are getting exactly what they want. It's taught, it's drilled, and it's recruited for.
The scoring factory on 3. 1, 2, 3, scoring factory.
What's going on, everybody? Coach Kevin with the Scoring Factory, back with episode 28 of our breakdown series. Today we're talking about Jim Boeheim's 2-3 zone, so let's get right into it. When people talk about the Syracuse 2-3 zone, they usually frame it as something old school, a college gimmick that caught teams off guard. But that misses the point. This wasn't just a zone. It was a defensive identity that survived decades, multiple eras of basketball, and constant rule changes, and still produced elite defenses year after year. Today, I want to break down why Jim Boeheim's 2-3 zone was so effective, what separated it from traditional zones, and how Syracuse used structure, spacing, and personnel to turn a simple alignment into a system that controlled games. At its core, a zone defense is about trade-offs. You're giving something up to take something away, usually individual matchups in exchange for spacing control and help positioning. What Syracuse did better than almost anyone was eliminate the typical weaknesses of a zone. They weren't passive, they didn't sit back, and they didn't allow offenses to comfortably play into the gaps. Instead, the zone was built to disrupt rhythm, shrink driving lanes, take away early advantages, and force offenses to play slower and deeper into the clock. That's why teams often said that the zone felt bigger than it actually was. Most 2-3 zones are reactive. They move once the ball moves. They adjust once the offense forces them to adjust. Syracuse's zone was proactive. It was designed to influence where the ball could go, not just respond to where it already was. That subtle difference is what made it so difficult to attack consistently. The alignment might have looked familiar, but the way the 5 defenders worked together, their spacing, timing, and responsibility made it fundamentally different from what most teams label as a 2-3. Another huge reason this defense worked for so long was who Syracuse recruited. Length mattered more than traditional positions. Wings had to defend multiple actions, and bigs had to be comfortable guarding space and not just the rim. Instead of asking players to play outside their strengths, the system was built around a very specific defensive role, and players were recruited to fit those roles. That consistency allowed the zone to stay effective even as the game evolved. And all of that sounds good in theory, but the real reason this defense worked shows up on film, in how the 5 defenders move together, how they close space without overcommitting, and how responsibility is shared across the floor. So let's jump into the tape and look at how this zone actually functions possession by possession, and why it gave offenses so many problems. All right, so take a look at this clip, and I understand, especially with this zone, it moves so well as a 5-man unit that it's tough to isolate certain responsibilities here, but we're gonna look at these 2 top guards will work from the top down. Now, what I want you to notice first is how high the zone is lifted. Even the back line, normally in a high school zone or a college zone, they'll be back here around the blocks and the top guys will be here. Syracuse lifts all of that, so the pickup point is higher. Now watch, as this ball gets swung to the wing, this guard's responsibility is to step out and guard. So as he steps out and guard, he's getting a little bit of help from the wing here. The other guard's responsibility is to sink to the nail to make sure that if this pass tries to get thrown, it's covered up. Most teams will try to beat the 2-3 zone by getting it into this nail area, which is where it's the most vulnerable. However, because this zone and the back line is lifted so high, trying to deliver this pass through what would be 1, 2, 3, and a 4th defender is extremely difficult, if not impossible. So now as the ball is swung back to the top, we retreat back to our normal spots. As it moves to the other side, the wing is going to show until the guard can get out and guard, and here comes our other guard back to the nail to make sure that this pass or this pass isn't going to get through. And now again, we're swinging it up top and we move it around. And this is exactly what Syracuse wants you to do. Just repetitive movements up around the top. It never gets inside the shell of the zone. It never gets below the back line. If they can keep you up here for 15, 20 seconds of the shot clock, you're not going to be able to generate a good shot. And that starts with the guards. Now they're going to get help from the wings, which we'll talk about in a second. But the guards being able to keep this ball going back and forth is what's making the zone so effective. You can see they're trying to get the ball to the middle from every every angle. But because as this guard goes over, this guard starts to cover up, that's exactly how they're going to prevent this pass from getting there. So now as we move into the next clip, we're going to see it again. As the ball is moved to the wing, this guard is going to come and close out as this guard comes and covers up the middle here. They are more than happy to let this pass happen. They are not going to get aggressive and gamble and try to get these poke steals. They are just making sure that this ball does not get right about to the ACC logo. Now, the other person that's helping this is the deep center. He is going to step up and make sure it doesn't get there while this guard is sitting on this pass as well. So again, they are getting exactly what they want. The ball moving across the top of the zone without actually being able to penetrate the zone. Now the wing is lifted so that he can give a second for the guard to get back out so that the ball handler can't attack this gap and get to that logo off the dribble. So again, now we've covered up the ball, we're covering up this pass to the middle, and so again, it just continues to move and we get really just this three-man game between these top three players, and they never actually crack the shell of the defense. Even though they're sending cutters to this ACC logo, they're not relying on this back guy to cover that up. Our guard here, our second guard, is making sure this stays covered up, and if this is thrown for a deep catch and shoot three, that's something that they are willing to live with. And because they are so athletic and long, they're able to recover and close out back to these shooters, and again, the offense generates nothing. So again, here's another clip illustrating the guard's job is ideally to keep the ball moving around the perimeter and not get down into these corners because their back line is lifted so high. And the other job is to make sure it does not get into the ACC logo here. So again, the guards, they've kept it in front, but now they know, they can sense that this guard is here. And this has to be a deflection. This pass cannot get through, because if it does, imagine if this pass wasn't deflected and got through right here. The zone is now effectively broken. You really, if you think about it, would have a 1, 2, 3 on 2 defenders here. What this would turn into, if this pass gets through, most likely a lob, and if this gets covered up, it's a kick out wide open corner three. So the most important role that the guards have, make sure that it stays up really above the free throw line here, and that it does not get into the middle of the zone. Now, if the ball did get entered into the high post, and this is not what we want, but the guards did not turn and go try to get it after the ball got there. Why? Because that would leave all of these passes, kickouts for wide open threes available. So instead of going and chasing the ball, what the guards did is something kind of like a fan out to the perimeter here. So yes, this is really like a 2-on-3 if we're trying to throw these passes, but it allows the guards to at least recover. And again, remember, Boeheim is recruiting long athletes, so these guys can close out even if they're not in perfect position. Right now, this is surrounding the guy with the ball, making this pass difficult because we're gonna step here, and really what this is leaving open, and again, this is not an ideal situation for Syracuse, this is leaving a 15-foot push shot or jump shot from the center as the option that the offense can get here. And even though this is pre-analytics, before the analytics craze, it just takes intuition to know that that's a shot that you're willing to live with. So now let's take a look at the wings. What's their responsibility? What is their job? They are the outside of the 3 part of the 2-3. We've already talked about the guards here and what their job is. So as the ball moves, we know that this is the guard's responsibility to go guard the ball. But because he's closing out at a weird angle, we don't want to let this drive get to the middle of the zone. Again, that opens up cuts, it opens up lobs. So the wing has to step up and prevent that drive from happening. However, as he's stepping up, the obvious pass would be to get to the corner. And then as soon as that ball gets to the corner, this can either be a 3 or a dump down because we would have to step out here and guard. So the wing has a difficult job. He has to step out, prevent this pass while also preventing this drive. So he has to step out, make sure his outside arm is there to prevent that pass. And again, this is preventing the ball from cracking the shell of the defense. Here, we're gonna see it again as it moves to the other side. We step out, but we also keep our angle so that our arm can contest that pass. It forces a ball fake, and now again, we're really just operating at the top of the zone, which is exactly what Syracuse wants. now let's look at the center. What is he doing outside of protecting the rim? What are his responsibilities? Well, we talked about if the ball gets thrown into the high post, which again, ideally we slide in and deflect this pass and we're going the other way, but we didn't. That's fine. Now, again, the guards aren't going to step in and try to go swipe at the ball. They're fanning out to guard the shooters. So who is guarding this? Well, we know that we're sliding back here and we're going to step out. This is the center's job now. The center here is stepping up, and this has really turned into man-to-man, one-on-one defense for him. He has to be able to guard until the zone can recover, which he does. And now because the zone's recovered, we can dig and rotate back out. Again, this is what has to happen if the zone's going to be successful once you get a high post touch. You can't let someone catch it in the high post and see no defense in front of them. That's when they're able to spray out or throw these little lob passes. So the center has to step up and guard that high post if the ball gets there. So here's the other big responsibility of the center in this zone. A lot of teams will also try to screen the zone so that we can basically artificially create this driving lane so that then we can either kick out or look for lobs. So what happens now is as this zone gets screened, the center has to step up, not all the way up, but step up and guard the ball. Really what they're allowing is this mid-range shot to be taken. They are okay with that shot, but they are not going to have the wing step up to guard this just for it to be a kick out wide open three. So this is the shot that they are okay with you taking. If you are going to settle for this 16-foot pull-up, they are fine with that. But the center has to make sure to step up a little bit and not get beat all the way to the hoop. But the wing is not going to help strong side corner for this easy kick out three to who is most likely a shooter. Another way that offenses love to attack the 2-3 zone is to get it to this porch or dunker spot right that's about 2 or 3 steps outside the lane. So what Syracuse would do is, because that's a vulnerable spot, they would double it as soon as it got there. So once it gets there, the center is going to step out and that wing on that side is going to step in and double. Now what this leaves open is this dive cut coming right down the middle. So the opposite wing is the one that's responsible for taking this pass away. The only pass that this leaves open is this turnaround skip to the corner. And Syracuse is betting on a lot of these bigs catching it here, not being able to make that pass, and even if they are, having this wing be out and be able to recover. So we are taking away the vulnerable part of the zone, and then what it leaves vulnerable, we are also taking away as well. What makes the Syracuse zone special isn't the alignment, it's the precision. It's the wing starting high and recovering on time. It's the tandem at the top moving as one unit. It's the center being trusted to guard the high post alone. None of that happens by accident. It's taught, it's drilled, and it's recruited for. This wasn't a gimmick defense. It was a system built on spacing control, timing disruption, and collective discipline. And that's why it worked for decades. Not just because of talent, but because of structure, detail, and identity. The real lesson here isn't run a 2-3 zone. It's understanding that great defense isn't about schemes. It's about precision, roles, and cohesion. If you can build those 3 things into any system, zone or man, you're not just defending, you're controlling the game. And that's exactly what Syracuse did. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment what you want to see next. Follow us on our social medias at The Scoring Factory. And as always, I will see everybody in the next video.